without any further ado, Sarah, the floor is entirely yours.
Thank you very much, and thank you for inviting me today. I have actually got a couple of slides because the military desire to do PowerPoint obviously hasn't quite left me. Is it all right if I share some slides with people?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, right, so I'm going to share this. Okay, can people see a slide that says how I discovered military grade mindfulness?
Yes, I can see it.
And is that, can you see it as a whole slide, or can you see the outskirts as well?
I can see the outskirts.
Let me hit play then. Is that any better?
That's perfect.
Perfect, right, okay. So I am Sarah Furness and I was a helicopter pilot, which I kind of lead with that because instantly people seem to pay attention, which is a bit unfair really, but I've learned to use that. So start with that one. I'm also a coach, and I coach on resilience and performance, but also a speaker, and that's the area that I'm really trying to grow in this year. So today is not really a speech. I'm not going to give you a performance because I've also discovered that being a speaker really means that you're an entertainer. So I'm not going to try and put on a performance for you. This is going to be much more real, Sarah, just sort of sharing my journey and how I got from being in front of some helicopters in Kabul to standing here today. And I'd just love to hear what resonates with you, what feedback and advice you would like to share with me in the group. So I think I should tell you that it started here, which is 2018. That is Kabul, which is a humbling thing for me to think about now, considering we're not there anymore, clearly. And as you can probably tell, that's Christmas Day, and I'm the one in the front. And so that was really the pinnacle of my career. I was known as officer commanding the Torral Aviation Detachment. And those are all my people there that I am commanding. And I've got a detachment of 3 helicopters, and my job is to get, troops and government forces, if you like, around Kabul safely. So it was a huge honor for me to run that. And also, I felt like it was a huge honor to be doing it over Christmas, where people are separated from their families. And, like I say, it doesn't really get much better than that in the military. So I felt very proud to be standing out the front there, doing that job. There were a couple of things that were going on in, I suppose, my personal life that was the start of the journey, really. The first thing is, I don't know if you can see that, you might need to move what people's faces around, but hopefully you can see a very gorgeous blonde little boy in the right-hand side of the screen there. That's my son. And he actually just turned 7 yesterday. So in this picture, he is 2, and that's Christmas Day. So I was obviously in Kabul at this time, and I knew that when I joined the Air Force that I would be deploying. When I wanted to deploy, I wanted to serve my country, and I'd been training with all these people for 2 years, and I'd known it was coming. And so there was no issue from my point of view that I was separated from him. So it was hard to be separated from him because it was my job. And I wanted actually to use that to increase my empathy as a leader, really, because I finally got it, why it's hard to be deployed at Christmas, because I had this little boy in my life who meant more to me than anything. So none of that was particularly problematic for me. What was problematic was that the army, in their wisdom, decided to deploy his father at the same time, which I think actually goes against policy. But, in the military, you follow orders and you go where you're told to go. So as far as I was concerned, he was an orphan in that picture, and they deployed both parents. And I felt like that was something they could have tried harder to avoid. But also, I was project managing his childcare, whilst also leading a detachment of 120 people. So I had a lot going on, and I did the best I could. And I thought I did an all right job. I don't know what it's like in your environment, but in the military, we have quite harsh banter and, a pretty robust feedback. And when I got back from this detachment, I got, mixed feedback, I suppose. And some people were really quite critical of the way that I had led that detachment. the reality is probably everyone comes in for that criticism. But I took it really personally. I couldn't let it go somehow. And I think I felt particularly wounded because I'd given so much and I tried so hard to be the leader that I thought everyone wanted me to be. So I really, really took that very, very badly. And it sort of became part of my identity. I was this misunderstood person who had more to give than the Air Force could see, really, I suppose. And I was really quite angry, if I'm honest. So I tried to find a way to deal with this. And I came upon this thing called cognitive behavioral therapy. And probably quite a few of you already know what that is. But for those of you who are not sure, let me explain it to you the way I understand it. Cognitive behavioral therapy works with an idea that, you know, when anything is going on all around us, your brain is making sense of that so that we can decide what to do. And therefore it's producing thoughts. And often we're not aware of these thoughts, they're automatic, but it's producing thoughts nonetheless. And because of those thoughts, we feel a certain emotion and we behave a certain way. Now, often these thoughts aren't particularly helpful. So cognitive behavioral therapy kind of works on this idea that if you can change how you think, then you can change how you feel. So if you're feeling very hurt, then you can look at your thoughts and go, right, what's a better way to think about this? So I tried this. And I tried and I tried. And I thought, or maybe they don't mean it. Maybe they do think I'm a good leader. You know, maybe I shouldn't care. Maybe other people have said nicer things. And I actually saw a psychiatrist and he said, why don't you look for some positive evidence? So I did, and I got typical military feedback, which was, why are you fishing for compliments? So that wasn't really working for me. And I just ended up wrestling with myself all the time and just feeling more hurt and angry because I couldn't fix my thinking. And therefore I felt sort of destined to be permanently misunderstood. And therefore I was more angry and I was pushing more people away, and it was just getting worse and worse and worse. Something had to change. And that is when I decided to give this mindfulness thing a go. And I was pretty resistant to the idea of it. But I thought, okay, I'll do the 8-week course. And as I got into about week 7, there's this kind of loving kindness week, which is really not my thing because you kind of have to chant. And it's so kind of just fluffy for my liking. But also at about the same time, there was a sitting with difficulty module, if you like. And it's really quite a different approach to what I've been doing before, because this time when a thought pops up, rather than trying to change it, I just kind of witnessed it, which is easy to say and very hard to actually do. But just noticing it there and noticing just the pain that I was feeling, actually. And I could sort of start to imagine myself kind of putting my arm around, you know, the younger Sarah and going, I'm not going anywhere. I'm not going to try and fix it for you. I'm not going anywhere. I'm just going to sit here with you. And it was developing that ability to just sort of sit with that pain or that anger that I was able to see that underneath that was quite a lot of self-loathing, actually. And it's why I was so brittle and I had so many defenses up. And then I realized underneath that, I was actually just very afraid that I was unlovable. And I had a fear of rejection. And I can probably trace that back to not being the cool kid at school and then being, you know, not being one of the boys in the RAF, whatever it is. It actually doesn't really matter. That's the beauty of mindfulness. You don't have to go back and relive the past. You just accept it in the moment and go, okay, that doesn't feel great. And I'm just going to be an empathetic witness. And so that was kind of a bit of a light bulb moment for me, I suppose, was that I kind of discovered this mindfulness, which I now call military grade mindfulness. It's not about wallowing in self-pity. It's actually just about sitting with pain or fear, which is also known as distress tolerance. But you just sit with it. And when that happens, something really magic happened for me. And I realized it wasn't going to kill me and that I could just sit with it. And the more I did that, the more confident and resilient I felt. And it made me rethink what I thought of as mindfulness, because I thought of it as quite soft and fluffy, but you try telling me that sitting with pain is an easy, fluffy thing to do. It's actually not. It requires quite a lot of courage. But when you can do that in a compassionate way, it just changed my world, changed my life. And suddenly I started to feel stronger, and I started to forgive myself for all of my faults. And I started to have confidence to live my life according to my values, in the confidence that I could accept rejection, and I could still be me. So that was a really formative moment. And I think it was all of that that led me to discover mindfulness personally for myself. But then I took that into my next job, which was the final job I did in the Air Force, and I was actually teaching air safety. And sort of with that in the back of my mind, I was really conscious that I'm probably not the only person that has this conflict that's going on. And typically I'd have sort of 40 blokes in the room, and they'd be like this at the start of the room, and we do a 4-day course on air safety. And by about day 2, you'd have people going, actually, I've got burnout, or actually my daughter is self-harming and it keeps me awake at night. And people started opening up, and I thought, my God, I am not the only person who is finding this hard, but we don't all want to go to therapy about it. So I then had this kind of light bulb moment that actually mindfulness is a really good complement for mentally tough industries. And it's not just people in the military that might find this a fantastic way to process difficult scenarios without feeling like they're broken or that they need to be fixed in some way. And I felt like that was sort of going against certainly the narrative that I had experienced, which was we have to go back and find the source point and relive it and pull it apart and find closure. It actually gave another option, which was just to accept it with kindness and then move on. So I kind of thought, right, okay, I'm gonna deliver this to the people that that would benefit from it. So Wellbeit was formed, and I started just doing some classes for the military for free, and then I got my first client who I found on LinkedIn, and then I got my second client, who was this guy, and he was a Team GB boxer. And he came to me for mindfulness coaching, and I was thinking, what on earth am I going to teach you? Because he said, I want you to give me the edge in the boxing ring, and I want you to teach me mindfulness. I'm thinking, I can't do that. And he said, well, you must know about dealing with pressure because you've been in the military. So I was sort of desperately trying to think, how do I found mindfulness because of the military, but I'm not sure that there is a connection between mindfulness and military. So I was kind of racking my brains going, how can I do this? And obviously, having just started out, I still had that mindset of I must please everyone, and I must try and find a way to have the answer for everyone. So I was thinking, okay, what have I got? So I started thinking about my training, and I sort of went back to my first aircraft crash. I had a few. This is the first one that happened, and this is in Morocco, and we're going back quite a few years now, where we had just hit high tension electricity cables. And what you see there is a shattered canopy. And I don't know if you can see it on the side of the screen, you can just see the outline of my helmet and the instructors on the left there. And I remember that was the first time anything really serious had happened to me in an aircraft. So I thought, oh, I'm going to die now. And I remember actually feeling quite pleased that it would be a quick death. And then the next thing that happened was my instructor kind of brought me back in the room, and he was shouting, "Fly the aircraft, Sarah." And that, again, reflecting on that, was quite a formative moment for me, because I'd always thought that when we were doing our military training, we were training to multitask, because we had loads of injects that were being thrown at us. And whenever you went flying, your instructor would always dream up some practice emergency. But there were two things that I learned when I started to look at it with my mindfulness hat on. The first thing is that my instructor said, "Fly the aircraft." And that was our mantra when we were flying. Because no matter what else is going on, you have to make sure the aircraft is flying safely. There is no point executing the perfect radio call if you fly into a hill. So it was always fly the aircraft first. And then when you've got that sorted, then you can think about the next thing, which is, where am I going, or which radio call do I need to make? So the first discovery that I kind of made was we weren't being taught to multitask. We were being taught to prioritize what we needed to focus our attention on and focus on that one thing. And then what they would do is they would sort of gradually increase the pressure over time and put more injects in so that we could hone that ability to prioritize the one thing that mattered in that moment and focus on that one thing. And it worked. I'm happy to say that we made a safe landing. And when my instructor kind of did that fly the aircraft there, I went, okay, yeah, right, I remember now, I've practiced for this. And I went into automatic pilot because my brain had been trained for it. And we made a safe landing, and I didn't think about death again until I was on the ground and I was smoking every cigarette I could get my hands on at that point. So I had this kind of light bulb moment where actually that's mindfulness. Mindfulness is about focusing your attention where you need it to be and focusing on one thing, because your brain can't be in two places. And I thought, oh my God, we were practicing mindfulness, in a crashed helicopter. So light bulb moment number 2 was mindfulness is actually really good for honing our ability to perform under pressure. And very much like the military model, in the military, we train and train and train and train and train in peacetime, so that when we're in wartime, we don't have to think because we've already trained ourselves to do it. Or we train and train and train and train for emergencies so that when we do hit those wires, we know what to do. And it's exactly the same for mindfulness. You don't walk into a conference room to present and expect yourself to be magically calm. You put the training in. You wake up every morning and you do 5 mindful breaths or whatever it is. You put the training in. And that's what I realized with this boxer, Lewis. It's like, if you want to be good in the ring, it's what you do outside the ring that matters. So I was starting to see how mindfulness had a place in some of the most dynamic and pressurized environments. And I guess my last light bulb thing was, my goodness, if you can practice mindfulness in a boxing ring and in a helicopter, you can practice mindfulness everywhere. So I can take this to businesses that want to be, mentally resilient and perform well. And I am confident that there is an application for them. So that was kind of how I came up with the whole military grade mindfulness thing. And I'm going to finish with a little video that I put together, because it's sort of the end of the journey, if you like, which describes really in 2 minutes what my kind of mindfulness is all about. But I think also, to sum up, the military plus the mindfulness, so I've called it military grade mindfulness, I realized it gave me a really powerful opportunity. One is, it's great marketing. Put a picture of a helicopter on LinkedIn, people want to talk to you. And you have to sort of get past the whole, people are going to laugh at me, the military guys are going to take the piss out of me because they're not your customers. So I realized that I had this edge that I could use in my marketing, which I have used shamelessly ever since. But it also helped me to develop a product that was, really quite, in my view, fantastic, because I could apply all my 20 years of military training into mindfulness and give a product that, as far as I was concerned, wasn't out there. And then I think the final thing is, it's helped me to actually run the business, because I'm sure a lot of people will agree, business, a lot of it is about rejection, not getting that deal and giving yourself permission to not be everything to everyone. And that was a real mindset shift for me in the military, because in the military, you kind of want to be in a tribe and you want to be loved by everyone. But mindfulness gave me that toolkit to be able to deal with the loneliness of being a solopreneur and that rejection and all that kind of stuff. So I'm very grateful to the military and to mindfulness. And obviously I passionately believe in it, and I'm very keen to share it with the rest of the world, but not everyone, because I can't please everyone. Anyway, I'm going to finish with a little video because it's light-hearted, and then I'd love to hear your thoughts and feedback.
My name is Sarah Furness, and I'm a mindfulness coach. What does mindfulness look like? mindfulness is so much more than just meditating. Mindfulness is about training the mind to be mentally resilient. It's about being able to lean into difficulty when you need to. It's about letting go of the things that impact your performance, that drag you down, and that distract you from your A game. Mindfulness is about connecting with your environment. It's about expanding your mind and using all of your senses. And most of all, it's about enjoying the moment. So visit wellbeitcoach.com and find out how my brand of mindfulness will make you braver, smarter, and more popular.